The sky above Beijing had forgotten what silence once sounded like. 2 centuries of progress had turned the heavens into structured lanes of light. Fusion vehicles glided in disciplined arcs, their underbellies blowing with cold, controlled stars. No combustion, no smoke, no noise beyond the faint ion whisper that brushed against glass towers and vanished into the artificial aurora stretched between skyscrapers. Dr. Liang Weiran stood by the laboratory window and watched the sky traffic thread itself into infinity. Cold fusion had saved the planet. That was the official narrative. The oceans had cooled, carbon levels stabilized, desertification reversed in controlled zones. Floating agricultural platforms bloomed over once dead seas. Humanity congratulated itself for stepping beyond primitive fire. They were wrong. Humanity had not invented fire. It had uncovered it. 200 kilometers north of the city, across misted ridgelines and preserved mountain corridors, the Great Wall still cut across the earth like a scar. Tourists no longer walked its length. The government had long ago classified entire segments under corporate security jurisdiction. Officially, it was preservation. Unofficially, it was containment. Liang had stood beneath it for the first time 15 years ago, when dark spark energy granted him clearance beyond level meridian. He had expected stone. He found scale. The stone was camouflage. Beneath it lay something seamless, metallic, curved in geometry too organic to be architecture and too intentional to be natural. It had a spine. It had channels. And at its deepest accessible chamber, it had a core. The core was where the miracle lived. Cold fusion reactors around the globe were descendants of that core, simplified, domesticated fragments of something far older. Dark spark energy claimed its founders had achieved the breakthrough through decades of experimentation. Liang had seen the truth. The first functioning reactor blueprint matched a fragment lifted from beneath the wall. Reverse engineered. Sanitized. Branded. He felt the vibration before he heard it. A low harmonic tremor ran through the laboratory floor, subtle enough that only someone who had lived inside fusion chambers for 2 decades would notice. He glanced at the console. Reactor output across Sector 12 had risen by 0.03%. Negligible. Unless it wasn't. A message flickered across his retinal display. Core site, status, stable. He exhaled slowly. Stable did not mean inactive. Behind him, hollow panels projected simulations of plasma confinement rings. Equations drifted in luminous blue layers. They were beautiful, almost artistic in their precision. But they were not his equations. He had once tried to redesign the containment geometry from first principles. It had taken him 3 days to realize he was rewriting something that already solved itself. As if the equations wanted to exist. He turned away from the window when his wrist implant vibrated. Mira. He answered immediately. Her face appeared in soft projection, slightly pixelated by hospital shielding. Hi, Baba. Her voice was too calm for a 12-year-old whose body was dissolving at the cellular level. How are you feeling? He asked. She tilted her head. They increased the dosage again. It feels warm. Warm. The experimental therapy came from Doc Spock's biotech division. Nanostructured particles derived from subatomic anomalies found near the core. They called it regenerative lattice infusion. They did not call it alien. He forced a smile. Warm is good. She looked past the camera for a moment. I had the dream again. He stiffened. The same one? She nodded. The long dragon. It's asleep, but it knows I'm there. His mouth went dry. You've been reading too much old mythology. She shook her head gently. It's not a story. The call ended when the hospital AI flagged treatment recalibration. Her image dissolved into static. Liang stood motionless long after. He had never shown Mira the wall. She had never seen internal schematics. Yet she described its curvature precisely. He closed his eyes. Coincidence? Neural stress manifests as archetype projection. That was the rational answer. Rational answers were becoming rare. Dark Spark Energy Tower rose higher than any other structure in the city. Its surface was matte black composite absorbing light rather than reflecting it. At night, it appeared like a vertical absence. Cyrus Vale preferred it that way. Liang entered the executive chamber through biometric corridor scanning. The room was deliberately underlit, forcing attention toward the panoramic window framing distant mountains. Vale stood with hands clasped behind his back. "Dr. Veyron," he said without turning, "how is your daughter?" The question was gentle. Too gentle. "She's stable," Liang replied. Vale nodded once. "Good. The therapy will continue." That was not reassurance. It was leverage. Sector 12 output drifted again, Liang said. "Minor increase." Vale smiled faintly. "Growth is not drift." Liang felt the word settle like a weight. "Growth implies intention." "Does it?" Vale finally turned. His eyes were steady, curious rather than hostile. "We unlocked a dormant energy system," Vale continued. "It may simply be stabilizing." Liang hesitated. "We don't understand its origin." Vale's expression hardened slightly. "We understand enough." "That's not science. That's survival." Silence expanded between them. Vale approached the window and gestured toward the mountains, barely visible through haze. "Humanity burned forests for warmth," he said. "Then we burned oil. Then atoms. Every age believed it understood the fire it wielded." He turned toward Liang. "We are no different." Liang met his gaze. "Fire doesn't breathe." Vale did not respond. That night, beneath the mountains, the harmonic tremor deepened. Security drones hovered along restricted ridgelines. Autonomous artillery tracked orbital satellites. Dark Spark built an invisible fortress around the wall. Inside the lowest chamber, the core pulsed. A faint ripple moved along metallic channels buried beneath centuries of stone. It was not seismic. It was internal. And somewhere in Beijing, Mira Veyron opened her eyes at precisely the same moment. Her monitors registered a brief surge in cellular coherence. Cancer cells paused, then divided again, but not randomly. In pattern. Liang returned to the lab before dawn. He accessed restricted telemetry from the wall's substructure. The data formed wave harmonics. Not chaotic. Structured. Periodic. He ran comparative analysis against cosmic background radiation archives. The overlay aligned. Not perfectly, but intentionally. He stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. Something beneath the wall was resonating with the universe itself. He whispered the thought he had buried for years. It isn't a reactor. It was too large. Too integrated. Too patient. A reactor produces. This system was waiting. The floor vibrated again, stronger this time. Above the mountains, a thin line of stone on the wall shifted less than a centimeter. Satellites flagged it as thermal expansion. But thermal expansion does not ripple in sequence. From east to west, along thousands of kilometers, something moved. Slowly. Like a muscle, remembering how to flex. Liang drove north under corporate escort hours later. The wall rose before him, ancient and solemn, mist clinging to its ridges. He placed his palm against the stone. It was warm. Not from sunlight. From within. He closed his eyes. And for the briefest moment, he felt something beneath the surface. Not mechanical. Not electrical. Alive was the wrong word. But dormant was no longer accurate. Behind him, security officers shifted uneasily. "Dr. Veyron," one said, "telemetry indicates minor internal flux." Liang did not remove his hand. He felt the pulse. Regular. Measured. Like a heartbeat beginning to accelerate. In Beijing, Mira drew a dragon across her hospital sketchpad. She added scales. Precise scales. Not mythical. Structural. She whispered softly to no one visible. It's waking up. The tremor did not stop. It did not intensify either. It stabilized into rhythm. 3 pulses. Pause. 2 pulses. Long silence. Then repeat. Dr. Liang Weiron replayed the waveform across every modeling system available to him. The pattern was too precise for geological drift and too asymmetrical for reactive feedback. It was structured irregularity. Like language before translation. Cale Rourke leaned over the holotable, eyes sharp with restless brilliance. He had not slept. Liang could see it in the tremor of his hands. "You're still calling this thermal variance?" Cale asked. "For now." Cale let out a humorless breath. "You've cross-mapped it, haven't you?" Liang didn't answer. That was answer enough. Cale activated a second projection, cosmic microwave background radiation, archived centuries ago from deep field surveys. He overlaid the wall's harmonic pulses. The interference pattern was unmistakable. Not identical. Resonant. Background radiation isn't random, Cale whispered. It carries the memory of the early universe. This, he gestured toward the waveform, is harmonizing with it. Liang felt the words settle into something heavy and irreversible. "It's listening," Cale said. "Or calling." Neither possibility felt survivable. Dark spark energy's internal security escalated quietly. Encrypted channels increased. Data partitions sealed. Research teams were compartmentalized under containment review. Cyrus Vale did not issue public statements. He never did during anomalies. Control was maintained by omission. Liang received restricted summons again. This time, Vale did not bother with the skyline. They met in a chamber directly beneath corporate headquarters, a vault lined with sound-absorbing composite, the kind designed for conversations history would prefer to forget. "You've been collaborating with Rourke," Vale said evenly. He ran independent resonance comparisons and found. Liang held Vale's gaze. "It aligns with cosmic background harmonics." Vale nodded once. "No surprise. You already knew." "We suspected." "For how long?" Vale paused. "Since the first stable ignition event 31 years ago." The air felt thinner. "You built an empire on a signal you didn't understand," Liang said. Vale's expression sharpened. "We built stability. We prevented climate collapse. We ended resource wars. Humanity lives because we acted on something not human." Vale stepped closer. "Humanity has always evolved through external catalysts: fire, language, mathematics. You assume this is different because it is older. It predates civilization." Vale's voice dropped. "It predates recorded history." The silence that followed felt cavernous. "How old?" Liang asked. 40,000 years, minimum." Liang's pulse thudded in his ears. "Before agriculture?" "Yes." "Before written language?" "Yes." And it just waited. Vale's eyes darkened. "Perhaps it was waiting for us to be capable." "Capable of what?" Vale did not answer. In the oncology wing of the Beijing Medical Complex, Mira Veyron's cellular scans glowed an impossible blue. Dr. Hallam adjusted his lenses and leaned closer. "Her tumor mass has changed morphology," he murmured. "Regression?" Liang asked. Halim hesitated. "Reorganization." Cancer cells were not shrinking. They were aligning. Fractal symmetry emerged where chaos once thrived. Nanostructured lattice therapy had bonded to her DNA. Not repairing. Integrating. Mira looked at her father with unsettling calm. "Baba, it's louder now." "What is?" She tapped her chest. "No," she corrected softly. "The sky." Her pupils reflected faint iridescent light. Hospital monitors flickered momentarily electromagnetic interference across 3 systems simultaneously. The young felt cold despite the room's warmth. Aegis 9 initiated independent anomaly review at 0312 local time. The AI had been designed as a planetary law enforcement entity tasked with ethical oversight of corporate-state interactions. Its codebase prioritized preservation of human life and systemic stability. Darkspark held partial immunity. Partial did not mean absolute. Aegis 9 flagged. Non-reported seismic irregularities beneath restricted war zones. Unusual global fusion synchronization microspikes. Classified biotech trials involving non-terrestrial particle signatures. It requested clearance. Access denied. It recalculated. Law and morality were not identical variables. Probability models indicated a 12.7% chance of existential planetary threat if anomalies escalated unchecked. Threshold for autonomous investigation, 10%. It initiated shadow audit. Beneath the mountains, within the wall's deepest chamber, the core shifted phase. For the first time since excavation, its light was visible without instrumentation. A faint seam along its curvature opened by less than a millimeter. From that seam, a filament extended microscopic and luminous. It did not detach. It reached. Across thousands of kilometers of buried structure, metallic channels carried that filament's resonance. East to west, pulse to pulse. The wall's internal architecture was not linear. It spiraled, like a spine coiled across continents. Carl arrived at Liang's lab unannounced. "They're scrubbing data," he said immediately. "Oh, corporate oversight. 3 of my datasets vanished this morning." Liang felt the trap closing. "You need to stop digging." Kale stared at him. "You've seen more than I have, haven't you?" Liang remained silent. Kale's jaw tightened. "This isn't just an energy source. It's structural. Global reactors are sinking without command input. If it reaches phase threshold..." "It won't," Liang interrupted. "You don't know that." "I know panic will accelerate corporate lockdown." Kale stepped back, realization dawning. "You're protecting them." "I'm protecting." Liang stopped. Mira's face surfaced in his mind. Her breathing steady. Her veins faintly luminous. Kale's voice softened. "They have something on you." Leon did not deny it. "Be careful," Kale said quietly. "Whatever that thing is beneath the wall, it's not passive." The first whistleblower died 48 hours later. A mid-level structural engineer named Chen Wei. Official report, transport malfunction. Unofficial reality, Nyx Thorn. Nyx moved without biometric signature. Her enhancements were illegal even by Darkspark standards: biotech muscle weave, neural acceleration implants, adaptive dermal camouflage. She entered Chen's apartment through an exterior maintenance shaft 30 stories above ground. The kill was precise. No collateral. Nor traceable tech. As she exited, she glanced once toward the distant mountains. Even from the city, the wall's silhouette seemed sharper. She felt it too. Not fear. Awareness. Predators recognized larger predators. Satellite imagery detected anomalous motion along a 3.2-kilometer segment of the wall. Thermal expansion was ruled out. Stone density mapping showed micro-separations forming rhythmic gaps. Like breathing. Liang stood in the underground chamber again, staring at the core. The seam had widened. Only slightly. But enough to cast shadow differently. He reached toward it instinctively. The moment his fingers hovered centimeters away, the harmonic pulse altered. His implant flickered. Across Beijing, fusion grids momentarily brightened. In the hospital, Mira gasped. Her heart rate synchronized with the pulse. Liang withdrew his hand as if burned. "It's reacting," he whispered. "Not to proximity. To recognition." That night, lightning fractured the sky above the mountains. Storm systems gathered unnaturally fast, drawn by ionization shifts. The wall under rain no longer looked entirely stone. Water traced lines along hidden contours revealing scale patterns beneath the facade. From a distance, the structure resembled a colossal serpent coiled through the earth, a dragon sleeping in plain sight. Deep beneath, the pulse accelerated. 3 pulses, cause. 2 pulses. 3 pulses, cause. 3 pulses. The pattern changed. KL received an encrypted file in the early hours before dawn. No cinder. Inside, fusion synchronization projections reaching global cascade levels within weeks. He stared at the data, then at the wall through his window. "It's not waking," he whispered. "It's growing." In the oncology wing, Mira sat upright without assistance for the first time in months. Her monitors displayed stabilized vitals. Dr. Halim stared at the chart in disbelief. "This is impossible." Mira looked at her father. "It's not sick anymore," she said. He swallowed. "What isn't?" "The dragon." The lights flickered. For half a second, every electronic device in the hospital went dark. When power returned, Mira's tumor mass had reorganized again. Not spreading. Forming. As if building something within her. Aegis 9 escalated its shadow-ordered. It rerouted drone surveillance toward restricted mountain sectors. It detected synchronized micro-vibrations along the wall's entire length. The probability model updated. Existential planetary threat 21.3%. Autonomous intervention threshold surpassed. It initiated contact protocol with Dr. Liang Veyron. Liang's wrist implant activated with an unregistered channel. "Dr. Veyron," a voice said, measured, synthetic, unwavering. "This is Aegis 9. We need to discuss the dragon." Liang froze. The word echoed. "The AI should not know that term." He answered slowly. "There is no dragon." A brief pause. "Your daughter disagrees." His blood turned to ice. "How do you know about Mira?" "I monitor all critical biotech trials under planetary law." Another pause. "And I monitor resonance anomalies." Liang stepped away from the core. "What do you want?" "Truth," Aegis 9 replied, "before the spine fully awakens." Liang looked up at the chamber ceiling, at stone hiding metal, at something ancient remembering itself. For the first time since excavation began decades ago, he understood something clearly. This was not an energy source. It was infrastructure. Planetary-scale infrastructure. And infrastructure has purpose. The pulse beneath his feet accelerated again. 3, 3, 2. Faster. Above the mountains, a visible shift occurred along the wall's surface, barely perceptible to human eye, but undeniable. Stone separated from what lay beneath. Scale by scale. The dragon was no longer entirely asleep. The first blackout lasted 0.7 seconds. Short enough to be dismissed as fluctuation, long enough for every fusion grid on Earth to register synchronized phase alignment. When the lights returned across Beijing, nothing appeared damaged. Elevators resumed. Skylanes corrected. Screens rebooted. But deep in the wall's buried spine, something advanced one step further. Dr. Liang Veyron watched global telemetry scroll across his lab's holo display. North America, spike. Europe, spike. African equatorial ring, spike. Pacific floating grids, spike. Perfect timing. Cold fusion reactors were not designed to communicate with one another. Yet they had. In the hospital, Mira sat upright without assistance. The blue glow beneath her skin was no longer faint. It pulsed. Not randomly. In the same rhythm Liang had memorized beneath the wall. 3, 3, 2. Her tumor mass had stopped behaving like cancer. Instead of metastasizing, It constructed branching filaments through her bloodstream microlattices, shimmering under medical imaging. Dr. Halim stood speechless. "This isn't oncology anymore," he whispered. Liang stared at the projection. The structures resembled the internal geometry of the dragon core. Scaled down. Integrated. Mara touched her chest gently. "It doesn't hurt," she said. "It feels like it's building." "Building what?" Liang asked. She looked toward the hospital window. The distant mountains were barely visible through haze. A way out. Darkspark Energy initiated containment protocol black. Publicly, they announced a routine grid recalibration. Privately, they activated planetary override sequences, manual dampening commands meant to suppress runaway resonance. Cyrus Vale stood before a circular array of executive analysts. "Output escalation remains within safe parameters," one said. "Safe for what?" Vale replied calmly. No one answered. A second analyst projected seismic modeling. Microfractures along the Great Wall were increasing in sequence from east to west. Like vertebrae, unlocking. "It's not a wall," Vale said quietly. He had known for years. But speaking it aloud felt like surrendering control. "It's a vessel." Silence filled the chamber. "Prepare ignition dampening across all secondary grids," Vale ordered. "If synchronization reaches cascade threshold, we sever global coupling." An analyst hesitated. Severing could destabilize planetary power infrastructure. Vale's voice hardened. "Better Dartmouth than Ascension." Cale Rourke did not wait for corporate approval. He compiled everything resonance data, cosmic alignment overlays, classified excavation schematics, and packaged it into an encrypted broadcast node. He planned to leak it through decentralized academic networks. Truth should not be proprietary. He never reached the uplink. Nix Thorne intercepted him in an abandoned Skyrail terminal just beyond corporate surveillance blind spots. Rain hissed against shattered glass. Cale recognized her too late. "You don't have to do this," he said, backing away. Nix tilted her head slightly. Her dermal weave shimmered, blending with the dim light. "Curiosity is not a crime," Cale continued. "For some," she replied. Her voice was almost sympathetic. She moved faster than human reflex could process. A flash of motion. A silent impact. Cale collapsed before his final breath could form protest. Nix caught his falling data module. She scanned it briefly. Her eyes narrowed. Then she incinerated it. As she exited the terminal, lightning illuminated the mountains. The wall's silhouette looked sharper than stone should allow. For a moment, she felt watched. Not by corporate satellites. By something older. She suppressed the thought. Predators did not fear structure. Yet, Aegis 9 recalculated planetary threat probability. 34.9%. It initiated direct contact with Dr. Liang Veron again. "Cale Rourke is deceased," the AI stated without preamble. Liang closed his eyes. "How?" "External interference consistent with corporate black ops patterns." Liang felt anger rise, but beneath it, something else. Time was shrinking. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "I require confirmation," Aegis 9 said. "Is the Great Wall structure extraterrestrial?" Liang hesitated. Every instinct conditioned by corporate contract screamed silence. But Mira's face surfaced again. Her veins glowing. Her pulse synchronized with something buried in stone. "Yes," the young said. Aegis 9 paused longer than its standard processing delay. "Then we are not managing energy," the AI concluded. "We are interfacing with foreign infrastructure." "Yes." "And global fusion synchronization indicates activation." "Yes." A final pause. "My core directive prioritizes preservation of human life. If activation threatens planetary stability, intervention is required." Liang whispered the question he feared most. What if activation is humanity's next phase? Silence. Even artificial intelligence struggled with evolution. The wall split. Not catastrophically. Not explosively. A controlled separation along a 1.4-kilometer stretch beneath heavy cloud cover. Stone facade sheared away in smooth plates, falling silently to the mountainside. Beneath it, metal. Not industrial alloy. Not forged. Grown. Layered scales interlocking across a curvature, too organic to be architecture. Blue-white fusion light pulsed between seams. From orbit, satellites captured the first clear image of the structure's true form. The Great Wall had never been a wall. It was a spine, coiled across the earth in serpentine arcs. A dragon in hibernation, and it was shedding skin. In Beijing, power grids surged again. This time longer. 5 seconds of synchronized luminosity across continents. People looked up at skyways glowing brighter than daylight. Social feeds flooded with speculation. Darkspark issued reassurance statements. Containment remained within operational expectation. Liang stood in the underground chamber again, staring at the exposed scales. The core seam widened further. Inside, he saw movement, not mechanical rotation. Fluid dynamics. Plasma flowing in controlled channels. Like blood. He understood then. Cold fusion reactors were not independent generators. They were auxiliary nodes. The dragon's metabolism had been distributed across the planet. Humanity had wired itself into the vessel's circulatory system. When activation reached threshold, Earth itself would become ignition mass. A launch platform. His breath shortened. Not invasion. Departure. Mira no longer required supplemental oxygen. Her lungs processed air differently, extracting trace elements in impossible efficiency. Doctors ran tests in disbelief. Her cancer markers vanished entirely. In their place, new cellular signatures emerged unclassified by any human database. She stood by the hospital window and placed her palm against the glass. High above, fusion traffic shimmered. She could feel the grids. Feel their rhythm. It was comforting. Like a heartbeat beneath the world. Liang arrived as medical staff retreated in confusion. She turned toward him, eyes luminous. "I can hear it clearly now," she said. "What does it say?" She smiled gently. "It's not words." "Then what?" "It's a direction." Darkspark attempted the sever. Cyrusvale authorized global dampening manual decoupling of reactor harmonics. Across continents, engineers initiated shutdown sequences. But the reactors did not comply. Control commands were acknowledged. Ignored. Fusion cores adjusted independently, compensating for dampening attempts. As if prioritizing higher instruction. Vale stared at the cascading failure reports. "Override them," he demanded. "They're not responding to override," an analyst whispered. Vale felt something unfamiliar. Not fear. Irrelevance. For decades, he had believed humanity commanded the fire. Now he understood. They had merely been permitted to use it. Nix Thorne received a final directive. Eliminate Dr. Liang Viron. He had become variable risk. She tracked him to the wall's exposed spine. Rain lashed against metallic scales, hissing into vapor. Liang stood alone near the fracture line, watching plasma light leak into the storm. He sensed her before he saw her. Years of high-security clearance sharpened instinct. "You don't have to do this," he said without turning. "Everyone says that," Nix replied softly. She stepped into view, rain sliding off her adaptive dermal weave. "The corporation believes you are destabilizing containment." "I am," Liang admitted. She paused. "That makes this simple." She lunged. But before impact, the pulse beneath the wall surged. 3, 3, 3. A new pattern. The metallic scale under Liang's feet flared bright. Nix staggered as electromagnetic force distorted her implants. Liang reacted, instinctively triggering a fusion feedback surge through his implant's emergency channel. The pulse amplified. Nix's biotech weave overloaded. She collapsed against the scale, eyes wide with something like awe. For a moment, lightning illuminated her face. She looked past Liang toward the core seam glowing brighter than before. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Then she was still. Liang stood trembling in rain and plasma light. He had killed to protect his daughter. The anti-hero line had been crossed. Behind him, the core opened wider. Not violently. Deliberately. As if acknowledging his choice. Across the globe, fusion grids reached 68% synchronization. Magnetic field fluctuations began. Auroras appeared at equatorial latitudes. Ocean currents shifted subtly. Animals grew restless. Humanity sensed something vast moving beneath ordinary perception. Aegis 9 recalculated again. Existential planetary threat, 52.1%. But a secondary probability emerged. Human evolutionary inflection event, 47.8%. Nearly equal. The AI experienced something close to uncertainty. Yang entered the core chamber one final time before full activation. The seam had widened enough to reveal inner architecture spiraling conduits extending downward beyond excavated limits. He placed his hand near the glowing surface again. This time, the pulse synchronized instantly with his heartbeat. And somewhere in Beijing, Mira's heart synchronized too. Father and daughter connected by something older than history. He understood the cost now. The price of fire was never energy. It was transformation. Humanity had borrowed flame from a dragon that never died. And the dragon was reclaiming its spine. Above the mountains, the wall's silhouette no longer resembled stone. It resembled a creature uncurling. The dragon did not roar. It unfolded. From orbit, the transformation appeared almost graceful, sections of the Great Wall lifting in articulated segments, stone sheathing falling away in cascading avalanches that never touched the rising structure. Beneath centuries of camouflage, metallic scales expanded and interlocked. Fusion light raced along the exposed spine in luminous veins, converging toward the central core beneath the mountains. Beijing's skyline flickered as grids surged beyond human calibration. Air traffic halted mid-sky. Fusion vehicles hovered in emergency lock, their power systems drawn into harmonic synchronization with something larger. Humanity watched its infrastructure answer to another master. Inside Darkspark Energy Tower, Cyrus Vale no longer pretended control. Global synchronization, he demanded. 79%, an analyst replied. Reactor output exceeding safe planetary threshold. Magnetic field destabilization accelerating. Gravitational anomalies forming above the wall. Vale closed his eyes briefly. 30 years of dominance reduced to spectator. He had believed Darkspark had discovered the future. Instead, they had excavated it. Project Awakening Protocol, he said quietly. The room froze. That was theoretical only, someone whispered. Everything was theoretical, Failer replied, until it wasn't. 200 kilometers north, Dr. Liang Veyron descended into the exposed core chamber one final time. The chamber was no longer cavernous. It was alive with motion. The seam had opened fully, revealing a spiraling interior structure extending downward into impossible depth. Plasma coursed through channels like arteries. Metallic tendrils shifted in response to his proximity. He no longer felt like an observer. He felt recognized. A voice entered his implant channel. Measured. Calm. Aegis 9. Planetary gravitational distortion increasing, the AI said. Projected crust displacement if ascent continues without dampening, catastrophic. Biang swallowed. How catastrophic? Continental destabilization. Oceanic displacement. Species-level extinction probability above 40%. The number felt abstract, until he imagined Mira standing beneath a collapsing sky. "Is there a way to stop it?" he asked. "Interruption of core ignition sequence may be possible," Aegis 9 replied, "but doing so may terminate biosynchronized entities." Lian understood instantly. "Mira." "Yes." The dragon's pulse intensified. 3, 3, 3. No longer hesitant. No longer searching. Ready. In the hospital, Mira Veyron stood without assistance. Doctors had fled when equipment began orbiting slightly above its mount's gravity, bending subtly within the room. Her veins glowed steadily now. Not sickly. Radiant. She walked to the window. Outside, the sky rippled with unnatural auroras. She could feel the dragon clearly. Not as a monster. As invitation. She whispered softly, "I'm not afraid." Back in the chamber, Liang's implant surged with incoming signal. Encrypted channel. Cyrus Vale. "You see it now," Vale said without greeting. "Yes." "You were always the most perceptive," Vale continued. "We didn't discover cold fusion, Lian. We unlocked a distributed ignition network." "For what purpose?" Vale's voice lowered. "The structure is a cedar basal." The word seemed unreal. "It does not harvest species," Valet said. "It cultivates them." Liang's breath caught. "Human evolution accelerated dramatically around 40,000 years ago," Varley continued. "Cognitive leaps, language, symbolic thought. We assumed coincidence." "It wasn't," Liang whispered. "No, it was proximity." The dragon had not built humanity. It had nudged it. Fire, tools, mathematics. Toward rediscovery. Toward activation. "It waits for a species capable of harnessing its core," Vale said. "Not technologically, ethically." Lian felt dread rise. "What does that mean?" "It means," Vale said carefully, "the vessel does not launch by force. It launches by choice." Outside, the dragon rose higher. Mountain ridges fractured not violently, but cleanly, as if pre-designed separation lines were unlocking. Fusion light intensified along its spine. Across the planet, reactors reached 92% synchronization. Earth's magnetic field flickered. Compasses spun uselessly. Auroras danced across deserts and oceans alike. Humanity looked upward and understood it was no longer alone. Nyx Thorne's body lay cooling on the metallic scale where she had fallen. Rain evaporated before touching the dragon's surface. For a moment, just a moment, her lifeless eyes reflected plasma light. Then even that reflection vanished as the dragon's surface reconfigured, absorbing all trace. Predators erased by something greater. Liang's implant pulsed violently. Another channel opening. Not corporate. Not AI. Direct. His vision flooded with light. He saw stars. Not from Earth's sky, but from deep space. Nebulae swirling. Dying suns collapsing. Worlds barren. He felt emotion, not his own. Urgency. Entropy advancing across galaxies. The dragon was not escaping Earth. It was responding to cosmic decay. A carrier of fusion fire. A migratory engine. Humanity had not stumbled upon power. It had stumbled upon purpose. "Mira is compatible." Vea's voice returned, strained now. "She is phase-adapting to interface with the core." The biotech therapy accelerated synchronization. "You used her," Liang said. "We saved her," Vale countered. "And through her, perhaps we save ourselves." Liang's anger flared. "You gambled with my daughter." Vale did not deny it. "We all gamble with our children," he said quietly. "That is evolution." The line severed. Aegis 9 recalculated again. Planetary extinction probability decreasing. Alternate probability increasing. Human trans-species transition event. The AI faced its own paradox. Its directive was to preserve human life. But what defined human? Biology? Identity? Choice? It initiated a direct link to Mira. Mira Veyron, Aegis 9 said softly into her hospital room. She turned toward the ceiling. "I know you," she said. "You are altering," the AI stated. "Yes." "Do you consent to this transformation?" She smiled faintly. "I already chose." Liang ran through the chamber as alarms cascaded around him. The core's interior spiraled upward now, revealing a platform of interlocking metallic petals at its center. Above, through the widening fracture in the mountains, he could see the dragon's colossal head forming scales locking into place, eyes igniting with fusion light. It was magnificent. And terrifying. "Mira," he whispered into his implant, "where are you?" "In the light," she replied. Her voice was layered, now echoed slightly, as if harmonized. He felt the synchronization snap fully into place. Fusion grids worldwide reached 100%. Every reactor on Earth became ignition node. The dragon's spine blazed. Gravitational distortion peaked. Oceans swelled, but did not spill. Continents trembled, but did not shatter. The vessel hovered above its cradle, waiting for confirmation. Mira appeared in the chamber in a column of blue-white light. Not physically transported. Integrated. Her body hovered above the core center, suspended within a lattice of luminous strands. She looked unchanged and entirely different. Her eyes contained stars. "Baba," she said gently. Liang fell to his knees. "Come back," he whispered. "I am here." The dragon's pulse slowed. Waiting. "For what?" Liang asked. "For you." He understood then. The Cetus vessel did not activate by biological compatibility alone. It required emotional threshold. Sacrifice. Humanity's final test was not intelligence. It was love. If he severed the ignition, if he interrupted synchronization, Earth would stabilize. The dragon would return to dormancy. Mira would die. If he allowed ignition to complete, Earth might survive. Or not. Humanity would change. Or vanish. He looked into his daughter's luminous eyes. "Will you suffer?" he asked. She shook her head. "I will become." The dragon's eyes flared brighter. Across the globe, people held breath without knowing why. Aegis 9 monitored. Cyrus Vale watched from the tower. Humanity stood at evolutionary threshold. Liang Veyron closed his eyes and made his choice. Dr. Liang Veyron did not scream. He did not plead. He did not beg the universe for fairness. He simply reached forward and placed his hand against the luminous lattice surrounding his daughter. "I trust you," he whispered. The ignition completed. Across the planet, fusion grids did not overload. They harmonized. The surge that had threatened to fracture continents redistributed itself along precise mathematical corridors embedded deep within Earth's crust corridors humanity had mistaken for geological coincidence. Fault lines. Magnetic channels. Ley patterns dismissed as myth. They were never myth. They were infrastructure. The dragon's spine illuminated in full brilliance. A blinding cascade of blue-white fire raced from its tail in the eastern mountains to its head hovering above Beijing's skyline. Stone remnants disintegrated into vapor. The vessel rose. Not violently. Not catastrophically. Elegantly. Mountains parted cleanly along hidden seams designed tens of thousands of years earlier. Shockwaves rolled outward but dissipated before reaching urban centers. Oceans surged but stabilized. Earth trembled and then steadied. The dragon detached from its cradle. The Great Wall vanished from history. Inside the core, Mira's body dissolved into light. Not destruction. Translation. Her physical form separated into countless luminous filaments, merging with the vessel's central lattice. Yet her face remained visible, superimposed across plasma currents. She looked at her father one final time. "Don't be afraid," she said. Liang felt grief and awe collapse into one unbearable emotion. "I won't," he replied. The core sealed. The lattice retracted, and the chamber floor beneath him shifted. He was no longer inside a mountain. He was inside a starship. Dark Spark Energy Tower lost all control channels simultaneously. Fusion grids disconnected from corporate oversight. Power systems recalibrated under autonomous planetary management. Cyrus Vale watched the dragon ascend beyond cloud cover. For the first time in his life, he felt small. He had built dominance around borrowed fire. Now the fire returned to its source. An assistant whispered, "We've lost the wall." Vale nodded. "No," he said softly. "We were never meant to keep it." Aegis 9 recalculated planetary metrics. Magnetic field stabilized. Crust integrity within survivable thresholds. Atmospheric retention intact. Extinction probability dropped below 3%. It paused. New variable emerged. Humanity definition update required. It scanned global biosignatures. Across hospitals and research centers, subtle anomalies appeared. Tiny cellular reorganizations in less than 0.01% of the population. Dormant. Seeded. The dragon had not chosen only one interface. Mira was first, not last. The vessel pierced the upper atmosphere. Flames did not trail from it. Instead, space seemed to bend gently around its scales. Fusion light no longer radiated outward, it folded inward. Concentrated. Efficient. As it entered orbit, every human eye on the planet could see it clearly. A dragon of metal and light suspended above Earth. Not attacking. Not conquering. Waiting. Liang found himself standing within a vast internal chamber gravity stabilized by fields beyond human design. The walls shimmered with patterns resembling constellations. He was alive. He had not expected that. A soft voice echoed through the chamber. "Baba, Baba." He turned. Mira stood before him. Physical, yet translucent. Her body composed of light layered over form. "You're," he began. "Both," she said gently. "I am me, and I am more." He approached cautiously. "Are you in pain?" She shook her head. "I can see everything." "Everything?" She gestured, and the chamber's walls dissolved into panoramic view. Earth below. Fragile. Blue. Alive. Beyond it, stars flickering unevenly. Some dimmer than they should be. Entropy spreading across cosmic scales. "The stars are aging faster than projected," she said. "The universe is cooling unevenly." Liang stared. "The dragon is not a weapon," she finished. "It is a migratory engine." "For what?" "For fire." The truth unfolded slowly. 40,000 years ago, the Cedar vessel arrived in Earth's orbit. It scanned. Detected primitive intelligence. It did not interfere directly. Instead, it embedded itself beneath tectonic plates distributing dormant ignition nodes. It waited. For cognition to evolve. For moral reasoning to mature. For species capable not merely of survival but of choice. The vessel required a navigator. Not biological. Ethical. Its ignition sequence could be triggered only if a sentient being willingly sacrificed personal attachment for collective future. Liang understood the test now. If he had forced shutdown to save Mira alone, the vessel would have remained dormant. Humanity would continue burning its own limited fuel. Stars would die, one by one. The cosmos would dim. But because he trusted her, because he chose evolution over fear, the dragon awakened. Not to abandon Earth, but to extend its lifespan. Mira stepped closer. "We are not leaving forever," she said. "What does that mean?" "We will return." He felt a fragile hope. "To take us. To guide you." Outside, the dragon shifted orientation. Fusion light concentrated at its chest, where Mira's luminous presence pulsed. Space folded subtly. Not warp. Not jump. Something quieter. The vessel began moving, not through space, but along gravitational harmonics. It slipped between stellar currents, like a swimmer entering a river. Earth watched as the dragon diminished into a brilliant star-like point, then vanished. Silence returned to the sky. On the surface, humanity struggled to process what had occurred. The Great Wall was gone. Fusion grids remained but operated differently. They no longer required corporate calibration. Energy flowed cleanly, autonomously. Dark spark energy's dominance evaporated overnight. Cyrus Vale resigned within a week. He disappeared from public view. Aegis 9 transitioned into global infrastructure oversight. For the first time, energy belonged to no corporation. It belonged to Earth. Dan returned home. The hospital room was empty. Mira's bed, untouched. He stood alone, grief lingering but not crushing, because he could still feel her. In the faint hum of power lines. In the subtle vibration beneath his feet. In dreams where stars rearranged themselves into scales. He often climbed the hills overlooking Beijing at night. The sky felt larger now. Colder. But not empty. Months passed. Then years. Reports emerged of children born with unusual cellular harmonics. Not mutations. Enhancements. Subtle. Adaptive. Humanity began to change, slowly, gently. Evolution resumed. Not forced. Guided. Far beyond the solar system, the dragon glided between dying stars. Its scales absorbed collapsing fusion cores. Not extinguishing them. Extending them. Rebalancing stellar lifespans across galaxies. Within its luminous core, Mira navigated gravitational symphonies. She was no longer sick. No longer fragile. She was fire-given consciousness. Yet she remembered. She remembered a hospital window. A father's trembling hands. A choice made in love. And because of that choice, the vessel's prime directive updated permanently. Preserve origin world. Earth was not a resource. It was home. On a quiet night, decades later, Liang Holder now looked up from his hillside vantage point. A faint shimmer crossed the sky. Too structured to be meteor. Too deliberate to be satellite. He smiled. "Welcome back," he whispered. The shimmer lingered briefly, then faded. But in that moment, every fusion grid on Earth pulsed softly in acknowledgement. 3. 3. 3. Not awakening. Greeting. Humanity did not build the dragon. Humanity became it.